Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. This is a speaker meeting. I will speak for 10 minutes and then turn the meeting over to our main speaker, Truck, who will share his experience, strength, and hope. Okay. I'm only speaking for 10 minutes because this is the first time I've ever gotten up in front of people to speak at a meeting. I'm Erica. I'm an alcoholic. So I have my timer going here, and I'm going to adhere to the rules. So I was born in the Bay Area in Walnut Creek, actually. What? Walnut Creek. Yep. We lived in Sunol, which is like a little wooded town in Alameda County. So when I was a baby, I was brought home to this little log cabin in the woods. And I lived there until I was 7 years old and have a mom and a dad and a brother, and we were all like a really tight family unit. My brother and I have always been friends, never really fought with each other because since we lived in such a small rural area, we kind of had to be friends or we would have none. Like there were seasonal kids and then like 100 kids at our school, which was kindergarten through 8th grade. So it was like you just don't make enemies in a town that small. I guess drugs are in my story, peoples, and they're in my story from the beginning. A lot of my family members are, I have a few addicts in my family, and drugs were always around, like when I was a kid, mostly just pot. And even like before, probably when I was about 3 and 4, I remember my parents rolling joints and smoking them. And I remember when I was about 5 or 6 in school, we had a discussion about drugs and how you need to tell the police if anyone is doing drugs. And I came home and told my parents what I learned in school that day, and I never saw them smoking cigarettes that were hand-rolled ever again. So after Sunol, it was like a really magical place to grow up. But I left there right in time because like if you reached puberty in this rural wooded town, you no longer enjoyed like hiking on trails and solitude and wild animals, and you either joined 4-H and became a cowboy, or you sat on the curb downtown and were like a hesher smoking cigarettes. So I'm glad I had a few more choices than that. When I was 8, we moved to Lafayette for a year, and it was like totally traumatic because I liked to play with sticks and dirt and make mud pies, and everyone there was like, the 8-year-old girls were like doing their hair and nails and like playing with toys that I'd never heard of. It was really suburban, and it was like kind of a shock to my system. A year later, we moved to Alamo, which was even more suburban, and but I made some friends with like a group of, like dorky girls. We all like to study and like watch comedy shows on TV. So I hung out with those girls for a few years, and then when I was about 12, all my girlfriends went to Bible camp, and they didn't invite me. So like one day I'm like calling my friends' houses, and I'm like, is so-and-so there? She want to come over and play? Oh no, she's in Bible camp right now. And like I went through all my friends, and they all ditched me one year. And then when they came back, I was like, what happened, guys? And they were like, well, you swear too much. And so like, they were basically embarrassed of me to take me to Bible school. So I made some new friends that year, and we started drinking when I was like 12 or 13. And they were always down to hang out. So I started experimenting with cigarettes and alcohol, and of course, like the way juveniles do it is always really creative. It's like going into the liquor cabinet. My folks drink, they're fond of vodka still. So we would just like, they had a full liquor cabinet too, but the vodka was always like, you take that and they'll never know. But it was a lot of like just mixing every alcohol. I remember once we wanted to stay up late and drink. And so we got like vodka and espresso and ice cream. And I look back to that and I think, yeah, that's like a really disgusting drink that a 13-year-old would want. When I was about 15, I guess, high school started. I was fine. I was already drinking. I guess I'll say what everyone says, like, I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. From the beginning, there weren't a lot of kids in my first 7 years, and then when I was 8, everyone was alienated from me because I was like the new kid. And then, when I moved again, my friends kind of ditched me, and so I just felt like I never found my clique. And when you have something like, when you're taking a substance and you have a bunch of people that are going to do it with you, it's like just a really easy way to fit in. And I hear that said here a lot, but it was true for me also. So when I was 15, I started like hanging around with a bunch of hippies in a park, and like most of them were homeless. It was pretty awesome. And we would just like take mushrooms and drink like kind beers and smoke pot. And so that was kind of how I got introduced to drugs. Also when I was 15, which is kind of an important moment, I was in high school and my friends and I would go to like football games every Friday and we'd like get drunk beforehand. So this one Friday night I brought it was like a little Schweppes glass bottle. It was about 10 ounces. I filled it up with my parents' vodka and took it to the game, and like we're hanging out in this park right next to where the stadium was. And I started drinking it in front of my friends, and like someone was like, "Oh my God, she drinks it like water." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right." And so I kept like chugging it, and people are like, "Watch her drink it." And so I was getting all this attention for like pounding vodka. And I drank the whole 10 ounces. It was like, $1.10. And I blacked out. I started swallowing my tongue at some point, which I don't remember. And I was like, just like about to die pretty much. And one of my best friends and some other people had to drag me to a payphone and call my parents, and they had to pick me up. And I went to the hospital, and I remember waking up in there, like, I had to go to the bathroom really bad, and I asked a nurse, like, "Can you take me to the bathroom?" And she was like, "Oh, wait here for a minute," and I was all confused and discombobulated, and, like, a minute later, she came back with, like, this, like, contraption. It was, like, a wheelchair with, like, a bedpan in it, and I was like, "No, I want to get up and go to the bathroom, like, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Okay, wait a minute, let me give you this bedpan just in case." And so she slipped that under me, and like, I looked around and I saw that I was like, I had things on my chest, I had an IV in my arm, and I was just like, what the fuck happened? Like I'd never woken up in the hospital before like that, and I asked the nurse, like, what happened? Did I break something? And she was like, no, you drank a lot. And I was like, really confused that you could end up in the hospital because you drank too much. When I was leaving the hospital, the last thing they took off was like they pulled something out of my nose, which I didn't even know was there. That was like the most shocking part of the day. It was like, you might feel a little tickle in your throat, and they're all so they had pumped my stomach, and the next day I was really tired and my arms hurt really bad from being dragged. But I didn't really feel sick. I didn't have much of a hangover, and my parents were just like coddling me and like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you drank that much, honey." So, my mom was kind of like, oh, I felt like buying you a toy or something, like a little stuffed animal at the gift shop last night. But then I was like, realized that you just got really drunk, and so I didn't. But, I think my parents just kind of tried to like let that one go, like youthful indiscretion. And they never really like gave me any rules about drinking or drugs. Finally, when I turned 17, I moved to Chico to go to college, which was a really wise choice. And that's where I decided that I had a problem drinking. I went to my first AA meeting there. I basically spent 2 years drunk. One semester, I actually forgot to pay tuition on time and got like unenrolled from all my classes, but didn't know it, so I kept showing up for class. And like my teachers knew me, and I guess they didn't realize I wasn't like that I had been withdrawn from all the classes. Wow, I talked for longer than I expected. So I guess I need to speed this up for 2 minutes. Anyways, I drank a lot in college, decided to stop drinking, and I didn't drink or do drugs for a few years on my own, not in the program at all. About 4 years ago, I found Vicodin, and I loved it, and it like increased and increased, and I started taking OxyContin, and about five and a half months ago, after I had been trying to quit for 2 years, I finally broke down and decided that I could not do this on my own, despite my best intentions and despite my really wanting to stop doing drugs. And I told a good friend of mine in the program that I needed help, and that I couldn't do it on my own, and that I needed him to take me to a meeting. 2 days later, he had like made the time to take me to my first meeting, and the whole time he was like, if you need anything, I don't have time to do it until this particular hour in 2 days, but call me if you need anything before then. And I was totally broken and ready to follow every suggestion, and that's exactly what I did. And like 5 months later, I've gone from 3 jobs to 1, which is awesome, way better than working day and night. My relationships at work are much better. My relationships with my family are much better. The goal of buying property that I've been working towards for 2 years has finally come to fruition, and I like have a building. I have a lot of friends, and it's all because I've like followed suggestions and done what so many other people have done to get sober and have a life that is more meaningful than, numbing yourself. So, thanks for letting me share. And now I'd like to turn the meeting over to tonight's speaker, Trek.
Already? Okay.
Yeah.
Stand. My name is Chuck. I'm an alcoholic. And thanks, Hannah, for asking me to come out. I love Oakland AA. I think it's like the best thing ever. I got sober in Sacramento, California, and nothing. No. Yeah. There it is. And I spent a lot of time around East Bay AA, and I love it. So it's really fun for me to be here. I have a sobriety date that's June 27, 2005. I have a home group that's the Monday night Pasadena Young People's Speaker Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet Monday night, 7:30. If you're ever in Pasadena, come on down. We'd love to have you. And I have a sponsor. I theoretically sponsor some guys, and I am like really tense and really kind of manic. A little bit outside issue. I have like 2 weeks no smoking, and like no, and like I I got ants in my room the other day, and I started crying like bad, and so I'm just gonna expel my energy on you guys, and so. Yeah, like I said, I'm really happy to be here. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about Alcoholics Anonymous and my involvement with it. And I got sober in Sacramento. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about how I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was not in Sacramento. That was in Los Angeles, and I was about 21 years old. And what happened for me is that I got alcohol poisoning. I was at a party in Venice Beach, and I drank a lot of rum. And then I drank more rum, and then I drank some more, and then I was hugging a toilet for a long time. And I hung out, I was about 21, 22, and I hung out with a lot of people who didn't really care. Like, they're the type of people that didn't care that their friend had alcohol poisoning, like in the bathroom, you know. And so in the morning, they're like, you gotta leave, like you gotta go somewhere else now. You can't. I have to go to work. You can't be in my bathroom vomiting anymore. And I said okay. And they kind of like pushed me towards my Volvo. And it's 4-door, and they pushed me towards my Volvo, and they said, "All right, see you later." And I didn't know what else to do, so I got in my car and I drove home. And I was driving into Hollywood, and I ran a red light, and I hit a car, and this wasn't like a rare occurrence. Like I hit lots of things. I hit lots of cars. I hit lots of poles. I hit lots of trees. I hit lots of everything, you know. And I hit a homeless guy once. That was pretty crazy. He was okay. He said, "No, I'm good." And then he like walked out. But I was like, "Oh God." and so I hit this car. And the best way I can describe like that kind of feeling is that I don't know if you guys have ever been like gotten in trouble and like your heart sinks a little bit. It's like you oh no, and your heart just, you know, like that's what happened, you know. And I was sitting there and I was covered in my own fluids and like it wasn't looking good. I saw the like steam coming out of my car. I was like, oh, is it no, you know. And then and my heart just sat there, you know. And then I got out of my car and I opened the door and I kind of like stood out like and like leaned on the car door, and then I saw like all 4 doors of the car open, and just these hulking behemoth like construction worker guys like come out of the car, and I was like, and then my heart just went poof, like that much farther. And I was like, oh God no, you know. And they came out of the car. And they're like, oh, you know, and they're looking at their car and they're registering everything that's happened. They're angry. They're on their way to work. Like it's 7 a.m. Like they're angry. It's like and then they look at me and they're like, God, oh my God, are you okay? Like, oh my God. And they came over and they kind of coddled me and they're like, oh my God, like you need to go home. You need to take a shower. Like don't worry about the car. Like just go home and like, it's fine. Like, just, it's okay. We don't even need to report it. You just go home and take care of yourself. And I was shocked. And I said, okay, you know, and so I got in my car and they went on their merry way and I went on mine. And I was like shocked. I just thought, I thought I was going to get killed. And so I went home and that thing, like I said, I was used to those types of things happening to me. They happen quite a bit. I experienced a lot of consequences, to my drinking. From a very early start. They manifested themselves in new, creative, interesting ways every single time. And every single time they made me feel horrible, and I wondered why I did them, and then I kept doing them, and I couldn't understand. And so I went home, and for whatever reason, you know, like a mixture of all the things that were going on, I didn't know what else to do. I had tried a lot of therapy at that point. I had tried a lot of, psychiatry and psychology and art therapy and things like that, art therapy, and nothing like seemed to really fix me, you know. And so I don't know about you guys, but when I was drinking, not even when I was drinking, but I had a girl who was like my go-to gal for like problems I couldn't go to my friends with and I couldn't go to my parents with, and like. And I don't know about you guys, but like I was very, very shielded of the things that I was doing, and it took a lot of pain for me to open up to anybody about anything that I perceived to be wrong with my life. And it was a huge deal for me to ask for help for anybody, because from a very young age, when I was growing up, I was a pretty self-sufficient kid, and my parents just kind of left me alone, and I just kind of went on. I just kind of did my thing and it was fine. I didn't really worry about a lot. And then, and as a result, like I didn't talk to a lot of people about what was really going on. And so the older I got and the more I started drinking and getting involved in these types of things, that I just kind of held on to that. And as I started to experience some of those consequences, it was really hard for me to tell people, like, this is what I did, like, these are the things I did, and I don't know what to do about it. I would just try and find ways for me to deal with them. And I tried, like, a lot of things, like I said, but nothing seemed to work. And so once again, I couldn't tell my friends, like, hey, like, I'm, like, getting alcohol poisoning and, like, and hitting cars and, like, and, like, waking up in places I don't know, where they are, and I'm losing apartments and I'm doing all that. Like, I couldn't tell that to my friends because I was afraid of what they were going to think. And I certainly couldn't tell that to my parents because, I was like I said, my parents left me alone for the most part. My sister was like, for any of you, like, therapy kids, my sister was like the identified patient, bunny ears. And she was the one that they all she got all my parents' focus, where I was just kind of like, in the corner, kind of deviously figuring out my own ways to live on a daily basis without wanting to blow my brains out, and so, that was kind of the environment I lived in, and I love my parents. They're great. They did everything in their power to give me the best life, I could have, but for whatever reason, that wasn't enough for me. And so when it would come time for me to have these conversations with people, I didn't know how to do it. I had no skills to say to someone, like, I'm hurting and I don't know what to do, But I did have this one friend when I first moved to LA. She told me that she slept with, like, Guns N' Roses, right? And literally slept with Guns N' Roses, like, the whole deal. And I was like, that girl, like, she knows, like, what's going on, like, she's someone that I can, like, go to with some problems, like, she dealt with, like, Axel, she can certainly deal with me. And so, like, I called her because I didn't know what else to call, and I said, hey, I think I have a problem drinking or something, because, like, this is what's happening to me. And she kind of listened to me talk for a minute, and she said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I have a friend who is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this guy, if you're willing, he will come and pick you up and take you to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you are willing. Are you willing to do that? And at that point in time, I didn't, my impression of alcohol or Alcoholics Anonymous rather, was built within the media, built within TV shows and movies and stuff like that. I didn't really understand what it was, what it meant to go there or anything, and so I didn't know what else to say though, and so I said yes, and that was it. And so I hung up the phone, and then she called this guy, and he came and got me. And just to kind of back up a little bit, growing up, like I said, my parents, they did everything in their power to give me this really good life. It was just me, my mom, my dad, my sister, and I was born in Oregon, and we lived there until I was 7, and then moved down to Southern California and hung out there. And I was like this good, creative, like quiet little kid, just really shy, and I wore a lot of corduroy, and I was a really good kid, and yeah, and yeah, it was, I had this really good childhood, and, growing up, I struggled in a lot of social areas, I didn't even really get that good at grades, I couldn't, I made a lot of friends, but I had I had problems keeping them, and, I was kind of I was always, the sidekick, I was really good at finding the guy to be friends with in elementary school and junior high who was gonna allow me the opportunity to not get screwed with by the bullies, and so I would just be that guy's cheerleader. He would kind of be over here, and girls would be talking to him, and he'd be playing sports ball and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and he'd be kind of doing this, and I'd just be yeah, you're great, and just kind of hide behind him, and so nobody could see me, and and that worked really well for me. But by the time I hit junior high, all those people kind of dissipated, and I couldn't find them anymore. And I remember the first day of junior high, grasping at straws and watching all the people I went to elementary school kind of walk away at lunch. And I was no way, come back, no way, come back. And who I was left with was this this Latino exchange student named Pierre, which doesn't make any sense to me, but he didn't speak any English, so it was him, and then there was this kid, Luke, who had some sort of disorder that, like, kind of the Gary Coleman disorder, like, he couldn't grow, you know? And so those were, like, my friends, and it was miserable. And what happened for me is that, I'm gonna tell you about Natalie. And Natalie, if you're here tonight, like, I welcome you. But, like, Natalie was this, like, hulking thing who literally would, like, pick me up at lunch, and put me into a trash can and roll me down that PE hill that the kids, like, that literally happened to me. Like, some Calvin and Hobbes, like, Snoopy stuff. Like, it was horrible. And it happened every day for, like, months. It probably happened, like, 10 times. But, like, to me in junior high, it happened, like, every day. And it was horrible, man. I got picked on constantly. And, like, I was the type of kid, like, I needed, like, something. I needed something to, like, temper all this stuff that was going on for me. And, you know, like, as far as drinking goes, you know, like, my family, they don't drink a lot. Like, my dad is the type of guy who will put beer in the fridge a week in advance, you know, in anticipation of drinking the beer. And here's the thing is that my dad, he came from a family of alcoholics. He came, from a dad who he buried of alcoholism. He had a sister who he buried of alcoholism. His sister was 60 when she died. She looked like she was 80. His dad, he hadn't seen in 10 years. He had wrecked every relationship, you know, and so alcoholism and drug addiction and all that stuff was a very cautionary tale in my family, but that was about it. I didn't really have any immediate, like, association with alcoholism. I just heard a lot about it. And so my family was good, but the outside is bad. Like, do you guys remember that show, A Current Affair, a hard copy, like, tabloid shows of the 80s? Like, I had a cousin who was, like, in a coke deal gone bad on a hard copy, you know? and my mom would she'd let these stories kind of, like, slip out every now and again. I'd be like, oh, that sounds crazy, you know? But, like, I didn't ever think I was in danger of anything like that. And, I was a good kid. And, like, you guys remember Dare, you know? Like, Barbara, you know, or, Nancy Reagan Dare. Like, ooh, like, when Dare came to my school, like, we all had to write essays about why drugs and alcohol are bad. And, like, you guys are looking at the National Dare Prevent Alcohol Abuse, like, letter writer scholar guy of, like, 1987 or whatever. Like, I wrote the letter that was like, alcohol and drugs are bad. Publish, you know, and that was, like, everywhere. And so, like, I was a good kid, man. It was not my intention to, like, do alcohol, like, do drugs, like, do cigarettes, do nothing, you know? And then, like, slowly, like, I developed, like, a lot of, like, my parents instilled a lot of morals in me and a lot of, like, this kind of stuff. And I knew that I didn't want to smoke cigarettes, and I knew that I didn't want to drink, and I knew that I didn't want to do drugs and all this kind of stuff. And slowly I started doing them to seek that relief, you know? And when I first started drinking, it was really simple. Like, I didn't know really what drinking meant. I saw my dad drink beer, and he would do it, he would do it, like, not often, right? And so he treated alcohol, he didn't treat alcohol like he treated water or, like, cola or whatever, you know? Like, he treated it like something different, you know? Like, I saw him drink these other things all the time, but every once in a while, like, and specifically on special occasions, I would see him pick, like, and this is so lame. Like, my first beer that I drank that at least I can consciously remember was the beer that he kept in the fridge in the garage. It was Labatt's Blue, which is, like, Canadian water, you know? And it's, like, bad. It's just, like, so lame. I wish my first drink was, like, cocaine or something, but it wasn't, you know? And so, like, it was like Canadian water, you know? And so, like, I would watch him take the Labatt's Blue out of the fridge and, like, and it'd be dinner on, like, a Saturday night or something, and he would, like, you know, it was a twist off, and he would, like, twist, because it's Labatt's and it's lame, and he would, like, twist it off, and he would, like, you know, just kind of like, yeah, you know, and he had a different reaction than he did when he took, like, a sip of water. And I wondered what that was. And then I'd watch him, like, not, like, consciously try and, like, not drink the rest of it, you know? And that was really interesting to me because automatically it meant that, A, this is something that he's going out of his way to do that is, like, it's like changing something for him, you know? And then I noticed that he only did it every so often, so it had to be kind of special. And so change and being special, that was what I was all about. And so that's what I wanted. And so one night, like like, I didn't do a whole lot as a kid in junior high. Like, I didn't have a whole lot of friends at that point except for Pierre and Luke. You know, we know how that was going. And so Friday and Saturday night, I used to sit in my room and I had a little TV and I used to watch, do you guys remember USA Up All Night? Like with Rhonda Shear or Gilbert Gottfried? They would like play like cheesy 80 horror movies and stuff like that. And they would play them until like 2 a.m. I would stay up every night and I'd watch these movies and I'd be like, yeah. And so I went to the fridge one night and I got the Labatt's Blue and I like went back into my room and I was like, okay, you know, and you know, I don't know if I had some magical sensation or whatever. Like, I really don't even remember it that well. I just remember that it was something that I probably wasn't supposed to be doing, and so I should probably keep doing it, you know. And you know, later on down the road, like, I started experiencing some of the effects that we get through alcohol, which was, you know, provided, you know, all the things we talk about, provided like a social lubricant for me and all this kind of stuff. And it was great, you know, like, I loved it. I felt the ability to start like, you know, becoming a mesh with like my fellows, you know, and I stopped caring a little bit, I stopped caring so much about what you guys thought, and it was easier for me to hang out. I noticed that along that whole time, the people that I was able to start hanging out with while I was drinking, I started alienating them too. And that was a strange concept to me, but it continued happening as I kept drinking. And so, you know, moving on, like I said, like, getting from that point to the point where, like, I was calling for my, you know, for help, you know, to go to my first AA meeting, you know, like I said, a lot of crazy things happened, you know. I love drinking. Like, I really, really love drinking. And my sponsor talks a lot about the idea that alcohol saved his life. And for a guy like me who's getting shoved in trash cans by Natalie and hanging out with Pierre and Luke, you know, like Gary Coleman, I loved alcohol because it gave me that relief that, like, I didn't know where else to get it. And so, and that, you know, that, like, little boy, that person, with that mentality, like, that was who I remained. And so, things got bad, like, things got really bad. And for me, you know, like I said, I was put in a position where I didn't know what else to do. I started having a lot of interventions from my family. This is after the AA meeting, so I'll go back to that. So I went to, I called the lady and she had this guy come and pick me up and take me to my first AA meeting. And so, like I said, I didn't know what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I just knew that alcoholics went there. You know, like, that's all I knew. I didn't know that you went there to recover from alcoholism. I imagined that you would identify as an alcoholic. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, and that was about it. Like, I had no idea what went on there. And I think at the root of it, I probably imagined it to be some sort of group therapy type thing. And that sounded okay. You know, like, I just wanted to stop the pain and more importantly, to stop the consequences. And so I waited outside and I waited for AA guy to come pick me up and take me to an AA meeting. And I was standing outside, and do you guys remember, like, the late 70s fantasy vans with unicorns riding like wizards and like stars and stuff airbrushed on the sides of them? You remember those? So, like, I see that van pull up in front of my apartment, and I was immediately like, whoa, yeah, and I was like, that's not my ride, like, that's not the AA guy. And so then I called the guy, and I was like, beep, bop, boop, you know, and then I was like, hey, you know, I'm out front, like, just 1 minute. He's like, yeah, dude, I'm staring right at you. And I look and I see the guy, in the front seat, and he's like, me. And I was like, whoa, no. And so I, you know, but once again, I was like, all right, like, I'm in pain, like, I'm gonna do something about it, you know, like, I made this call, I'm gonna do it. And so I go up to the van, and I open the door, and it was like this skeezy looking dude who looked like really bad, and like, and I opened up the door, and he was like sitting in there, and he's like, hey bro, get in. And he had like, gross facial hair, and like, he looked like he hadn't showered in a while. And I was like, all right, and I got in the car, and I sat down, I kind of like looked around, and I looked in the back, and there was a cot in the back of the van that he had clearly been living in, and I was like, this is great, you know, like, this is awesome. And then, but, you know, I didn't know what else to do, so it's like, all right, skeezy dude, save my life, let's go to AA. And so he took me to my first meeting of AA, which was this meeting in West Hollywood called Log Cabin, and it's this really big meeting. When I walk, it's like, it's one of those meetings where, like, when you go up to it, there's like the gauntlet you gotta go through. There's like a wall of smokers and they're all loud and they're like flailing around, and I just had to kind of be like, oh, you know, like bob and weave through them, like get in without any physical contact or anything. And I went to the back where the coffee was, and I stood back there, and I just kind of like, and then I watched like some AA speaker talk for a little bit, and I don't know what he said. I think he was from another state or something, and then that was it. And then I went back outside, and Rainbow Van like took me home, and that was it. And I didn't go to another AA meeting for like a year or two. I don't know what it was. And it had nothing to do with that meeting. It was just, I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing there. I had no frame of reference for what I was even going through. I just wanted it to stop. Like I wanted everything to stop. And so this guy took me to AA, and I was like, okay, well AA didn't work, so like that's fine. And then that was it. And I kept doing other things for a few more years. And in that time, I turned into what I like to call an intervention enthusiast, where like my parents they just turned into like people who just gave me interventions like all the time. And it was really weird. And what was even weirder is that I was this shy kid who kept to himself, and my parents, up until like around this time of, this point in my life, they thought like I hadn't even like smoked a joint or anything, and I was out painting the town like 15 different shades of red and just like going crazy, and they had no idea. They found out how bad I was because I had scorned an ex-girlfriend, and she called my parents drunk at 3 a.m. and said, "Your son's gonna die. He's probably gonna overdose in a few days if you don't do something about it." And so for them to hear that, they were like, what? What? And so that was my first intervention. That started my first intervention. And then I talked myself out. I was like, nah, it's just a phase, and I'm going a little crazy, but like I'll dial it back, and it's fine, and I've got it under control. I can master this. And that little and they were like, okay, all right, sure, go ahead. And I talked myself out of I don't know how many interventions, They never I was always able to talk myself out of treatment programs and all these other things. I tried some outpatient programs and some other stuff. Those were like some strides I would try and make. The most I could ever put together was roughly about 35, 40 days, which, in hindsight, most of the times I thought I was totally sober, I was still doing other stuff or like whatever it was. And, it was really hard for me to rationalize my behavior with like the person I thought I was. And it was really hard. And so, fast forward a little bit, all the, I was having all these interventions and everything. And years went by, and in 2005, on the eve of my 26th birthday, I hadn't seen my parents in months. In the meantime, they had moved up to the Sacramento area, and they were like, they were begging me to come visit them. They're like, please come visit us. Like, we haven't seen you. We don't know how you're doing. Like, da da da. And so, at that point, I was like mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted of living the life that I was living, and it was so hard for me. And it was one of those things where like I despised the idea of opening my eyes in the morning, and I despised the idea of shutting them at night. Like it was really, really hard, and I didn't know what else to do. And I had surrendered to the idea that this is just the type of guy I was going to be, like constantly failing everybody and everything around me. And I was certain that that's what was going to happen. And so I went out there for my birthday because I didn't really know what else to do. And they gave me an intervention for my birthday, and it was great. And so I got there on a Friday, and I was supposed to leave there on a Sunday, and I didn't leave until 4 years later. And they checked me into a detox in beautiful South Sacramento, which is a bustling metropolis if there ever was one. And they checked me into this. It was a converted convalescent home. And it was like a, yeah, I know. And it was like a 2-week detox thing. And the first week was just kind of like all right, we're going to like detox you because wow. And like they had to like prop me up when they took my little photo, and like, do you guys remember that movie Mask with Eric Stoltz? Like not the Jim Carrey mask, but the other mask. Like that was what I looked like. I was looking bad, and like it was horrible. And like, and they had to like prop me up, and I was just kind of like, ugh, and then they stopped my intake because I couldn't like function at all. And they were like, well, let's do it tomorrow, buddy. Like hit a bed. And it was horrible, man. It was absolutely horrible. But it was weird because it was one of the first times that I was around like a concentrated group of other alcoholics and the like. And it was weird because I was destitute, like I said, morally destitute, and I didn't know what else to do. And I knew I wanted to change. Is that funny? And I'm just kidding. And I was morally destitute, and I didn't know what else to do. So I watched these other people though in this detox, and I watched them come in and out because a lot of people were there either on Prop 36 or like some other things, and they had the options to leave whenever they wanted to. And I watched them do that. And these are people that were like 50 times worse off than I was. And I was like, oh my God, like how is he doing that? You know? And it scared me, and it scared me really bad because, you know, as I stayed there each day, I started, you know, like the fog started kind of being lifted a little bit, and I was like, oh man, like I don't want to live this way anymore. Like, and this seems like an avenue I can take to get rid of that feeling. And so, what happened was the second week I was there, they take you to AA meetings. And I'm assuming most of you guys are familiar with Alcavons, the mythical Alcavon, like the lamest thing ever for like a newcomer who had like, you know, 9 days or whatever. They're like, hey, come on, we're going to go to like 8 hours of AA meetings. You're just going to sit there for a while and it's 110 degrees. This is the 4th of July and life sucks. So sit down and it's great. Just have fun. Oh, and there's shitty food. So eat up. And so they brought me this Alcavon, and I sat there in the heat listening to AA for, it was probably like 3 hours, but like 2 hours too much, you know? And I was sitting there just like, oh. And then this girl walked in, and I was sitting, it was like a circle in the center here, and she came in and she sat right there. And I looked at her, and I was like, oh, where do I know her from? And then after the meeting, I went up to her and I was like, hey, what's your name? And she was like, oh, it's Corey. And then she looked at me, she's like, hey, is your name Truck? And I said, yeah. And it was this girl that I had gotten like blitzed with in high school forever, like years and years prior in Santa Barbara where I grew up. And now she was like at an AA meeting in Sacramento, like in an Alcathon. Like, it was weird. It's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, hey, I have 90 days of sobriety. Like, what are you doing here? And I said, I got like 12 days of sobriety. Woo! And she's like, oh wow, well, like when you get out, you should give me a call. Like if you're going to stay in Sacramento, you should give me a call and I'll take you to a meeting. And I was like, okay. And it was weird. Like something in that moment like clicked for me because it was someone that I could like visually identify with. And it was someone that didn't look insane but it was like someone more importantly, it was someone I felt comfortable with a little bit. And so when I got out of that detox, like I called her up and she's like, all right, I'm going to take you to an AA meeting. And then she took me to Sacramento AA and she introduced me to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous in Sacramento. And man, it was the greatest thing ever. Here's the thing is that at the time I was unemployed. I was on the verge of getting evicted from my apartment. I didn't have anything left to go to back in Los Angeles. So, I decided to stay in Sacramento. And, we talk about, and I started doing AA. Like I started I got a sponsor and we started working steps and I started going to meet 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings a day, just like Mr. AA newcomer guy. And it was great because it's like we talk about practicing principles in all your affairs, and it was really easy for me to do that because I had 2 affairs, and it was sleeping and going to AA, and so it was really easy. It was really easy and fun and awesome, and man, I loved it. And Sacramento AA, if you've ever been there, it's awesome. These people, they scooped me up, man. They scooped me up and they showed me what it's like to live life sober, and they showed me more importantly, sober or not, they showed me what it's like to recover from a state of miserableness that I was feeling, and that it's going to be okay. Things are going to be okay. And that was shocking to me. It was shocking to me, and I couldn't fathom it because I try and think about it. I try and remember what it was like for me because I literally did not think a day could pass without me picking up a drink or something else. I did not think that was a possibility. And so watching these people show me that was possible, it was absolutely mind blowing. And then it's that was where I went to my first young people's meeting. It was my home group for 4 years, and I remember I'd sat in that room and I watched these people talk about being sober and staying sober, and I saw this guy Randy, and he had 18 years, and I was like, that's stupid. That's an awful idea, it didn't really resonate with me that 18 years would be something that somebody would want to have, but I saw this one guy and he had just under a year. He had 11 and a half months or something. I was like, oh yeah, what is that all about? And it was really attractive to me because 18 years I couldn't think about, but almost a year of not picking up, that was an attractive thing to me at that point, So I latched onto that guy, and he told me how to experience all of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he would bring me to meetings early, and he'd make me stay late, and we'd set up the chairs, and then we would sit down, we would open up the big book, and he would read a page and I would read a page, and the magic started happening for me, and man, my life has blown up since then. My life has gotten huge, and it's awesome, do I go till 9 or 8:55 or what's the deal? Yeah, 3?
8:55.
Oh, all right, okay. So I love my life in Alcoholics Anonymous today, and honestly, the longer I'm sober, it's not easy to do that. The more I start experiencing the kind of the material gifts of being physically sober, I start forgetting the spiritual footwork I have to do to stay here. And man, and that's kind of the thing is that, I try and think about it a lot. I try and think about, do I want to continue to be in Alcoholics Anonymous? Do I want to continue to have, the relationship that I have with it today, tomorrow, And the thing is that, that changes, almost, all the time. But a constant for me is that, I feel like I want Alcoholics Anonymous in my life. I feel like I want it in my life, and what that looks like tomorrow, I don't know. But for today, I love the idea of being in the middle, even when it sucks and even when I hate it. And I'll be honest, I'm sure some of you guys can relate, moving in sobriety, I moved to a place where I don't necessarily enjoy AA there, you know what I mean? And, but what I found is that, I need to continue showing up regardless. Because right now, I'm in a position where I'm able to. I'm able to go to a meeting every night if I need to. And people, don't do it the way I want it, And that's kind of hard for me, but I found that I gotta show up anyway. And sometimes I even gotta set an example, and, thumbs down to that, But that's kind of what I found, and I've had to continue to show up in order to get just a little bit of the benefits, the spiritual benefits of being that I so easily forget. I so easily forget. It's like I just said. I was in a position the night before I got sober where my dad they were checking me into that detox, and he looked at me. And he saw me withdrawing on his couch. He's like, "What can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you?" And I kept telling him, "Nothing. There's nothing you can do for me." Because really, there's nothing he could do for me. And the one thing he could do for me, I would never ask him in a million years. But he kept asking, and he kept asking. And then finally, I looked at him. I said, "Yeah, you can go get me that bag, and you can put it right here, and then you can leave the room." And he looked at me, and he just kind of stared at me, and he stood up, and he went and he got that bag, and he put it in front of me, and then he left the room. And this is a guy who buried his father and sister of alcoholism, and this is his son doing this to him. And man, it broke my heart, And that was literally a day before I got sober, that was the day before I got sober, and I was already planning on changing at that point. So we're not even talking about all the things that happened before that. That was when I was on the road to recovery, theoretically. That's the kind of stuff that was happening to me. And it's I think about that kind of stuff, and man, I do not want to go back there. So it's I try and show up for AA even when I don't want to. I try and talk to people that have less and more time with me, and try and figure out how to better my spiritual connection with a higher power of my own understanding, because that's the stuff that was taught to me when I fucking desperately wanted it, I desperately wanted that sense of ease and comfort that I got from the drink. I wanted that from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got it. So I want to try and keep coming back, and you guys help me do that. And there's so many people in this room that I respect and love tonight, and you guys have showed me how to do this deal. And so I want to keep coming back, and I thank you, and I hope you guys do too. So thanks.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.